As we think about making disciples, indeed being disciples ourselves, but certainly making disciples, one of the central things about discipleship and Christian discipleship is knowing and understanding the Scriptures. The collect for the second Sunday of Advent asks grace from God that we will be granted so to hear, read, mark, learn, and inwardly digest the Scriptures, that by patience and the comfort of your holy word we may embrace and ever hold fast the blessed hope of everlasting life. The sense of hearing, indeed audibly hearing, reading, marking, paying attention to, learning, there's study involved there, and inwardly digesting has to do with actually integration of all of this as well. There's a lot going on there, and certainly it begins with the reality of kind of hearing and reading. Bible reading and hearing the Scriptures is a really important part of Christian life, and we need to teach people to read their Bibles. It's not enough to say, just read your Bible, although that's not a bad thing to say. But how do I read my Bible? Indeed, lectionaries are a guide to that. The Daily Office's lectionary in the prayer book helps us have a systematic way of thinking through or reading through the Scriptures. People often begin, when they have kind of a project, I want to read through the whole Bible, they begin at Genesis and plow through, which is one way of approaching it. Usually stall out at some point, but there is a sense in which resources are out there, like a one-year reading Bible, help us read through the Bible. How do I read through the Bible? We do it this way. Here's an option to think it through. The other thing about sort of reading through the Scriptures is we read them as they are presented to us in the Bible that we have, and sometimes that needs to be shaken up in the discipling of reading the Scriptures. Changing to a different translation sometimes is helpful to sort of hear things differently, to think about things differently, to experience what's being read. The other thing about it is the Scriptures, as we have them, the Bibles that we have kind of chapters and verses, which is very helpful because then you can find things. But the original wasn't written that way. It's just written as from beginning to end. And what does it look like to read a book from the beginning to the end, not pausing with the breaks that are in our Bibles? One of the things that I tend to do every Lent is take a book of the Bible and read that exclusively, and often in a given day read it from beginning, the book from beginning to end as a whole, to get a sense of it in a different sorts of way. There are all sorts of ways that we can learn to read the Bible and to think about it differently. There are resources out there to help us. But indeed, it's also marking, paying attention to what it says. And when the Bibles, as we read our Bibles, the purpose of the Scriptures is to convict us sometimes, to instruct us, to exhort us to different behaviors and to doing things differently. So there's a sense in which as we mark them, as we pay attention to them, we allow the Scriptures not just simply to be information, but the Scriptures to instruct how we might deal with this situation, which gets back to also the issue of inwardly digesting them. There's a sense in which in reading the Scriptures and in discipling people to read the Scriptures, we want to actually help them to learn how to inwardly digest, to take that biblical worldview and make it their own. So what that involves, like learning the Bible and discipling the Bible, involves having conversations about the Bible and what we're reading in the Bible with other people. Bible studies at our churches are sometimes helpful for things like that. Sometimes you can be actually in a study group or just a partnership in reading the Bible with one other person, where you talk about it and you think about these integration points and you ask questions and think those things through in a different sort of way. Discipling people in the Bible, in reading the Scriptures, is not simply just telling them that they should do it. There is a task of giving resources, inviting integration, asking, how does this impact your life? How does this invite you to think differently or to live differently or to behave differently? The Scriptures are and always will be central to what it means to be a disciple of Jesus Christ, being instructed in and learning the Scriptures. Part of our work of discipleship, in fact, and on some level, the first work of our discipleship is helping people to know and to learn and to understand their Scriptures.